and this is A-Star Reads, and it is time for a Sunday sum up. And I have a lot to share with you in this video because I actually filmed reviews for all the books, and I did it today, so you're gonna see me wearing this a lot. But I think I got all of August and September covered, and now just going forward I'll be talking about all the books that I read within the week that I've read them. And so that helps because it's really hard sometimes to go back and think about books that you've read in the past, and it can be a little daunting, but I finished it. I did it. It's been a weird week, and some of it's been good and some of it's not been good, but I'm just kind of trying to move forward, and I feel numb when it comes to school stuff at this point. So we're just gonna hope that it'll all work out in the end. 3 of my classes are fantastic, but there have been a lot of changes. In the one classroom that I was telling you was a real difficult class, a lot of big changes. And it means that we're gonna have to figure out a whole bunch of new stuff. And we were already finally starting to get on a routine with our schoolwork, and now we're gonna have to have a whole new routine. So these kind of things happen, and that's okay. Like, it's fine. I'm finally starting to feel like I might have time for other things aside from schoolwork, and that feels good because I didn't want this term to be all of, I wanted it to be about schoolwork because that's the intention of me going back to school, but I also wanted to find some balance in life and school and stuff like that, and it's been really hard with book 2 because I have not been able to find a balance that helps me make much content. But I also want to make sure I'm doing things that are fun within my life as well. I've been doing things, little things here and there, and I think it's helping out quite a bit. And last night we had wonderful reading sprints, and this was one example where, you know, we didn't do that many actual reading sprints, like the actual sprints part, but we had such a fun time chatting, and I just felt like it was a good evening for spending time with friends, being able to talk about things we love, and it was wonderful. And so I'm just gonna try and enjoy moments like that even more, and sit in those moments and not feel like I have to be anywhere else in that moment. And that, I think, is important because it's something that I always strive for, but my brain always tends to be 10 steps ahead. Like, where should I be doing next? What's due now? Blah, blah, blah. And, you know, it's really sometimes hard to sit in the moment and just enjoy it for what it is and not like wish for it to be over so that you can get on to the next thing. And I don't like that way of thinking, but in a world where we are busy all the time, it's really hard to not be in that mind frame. So I feel good. I feel really good, and I feel especially good today, and so I'm ready to tell you about all the rest of the books that I finished in August and September, and the books that I read this past week. Hey, so it's October, and you know that. I'm going to tell you about the 2 books that I have finished this week, and that makes the total books I've read for the month 4 books. I'm working through other books, but honestly, I have had so little time to read that I don't know what I'm going to get accomplished. The 3rd book that I finished for October was Heartstopper Volume 4, and I mean, is it surprising that I'm going to give this one 5 stars? I absolutely loved it. Now, Heartstopper Volume 3, I really enjoyed. I think I gave it 4.5 stars, but it wasn't quite 5 stars for me, whereas the other books have all been 5 stars. And maybe on a reread I would feel differently, but Heartstopper Volume 4 is just so good. And it does bring in more complex conversations, and it brings in situations that are difficult that our main characters are going through. Nick goes through something that I've gone through myself, and I could easily see that being very triggering if it was handled poorly, but I really thought everything was handled so well. And this series, even when we're talking about difficult subjects, still ends up being very comforting and is a wonderful series to read when you're looking for just something that feels heartwarming and easy and enjoyable. I love these characters. I can't wait to see what happens in the 5th and final installment. But now that I have finished through the 4th book in the series, I'm going to watch the Netflix or whatever it is version, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see what has been done with the show because I've heard the show is so amazing. So fingers crossed I love it as much as I love the books. If you're looking for something that is sweet, romantic, gentle, and yet has conversations that are important, but is easy to read because it's a graphic novel and it's just very endearing. I don't know. I just really love everything about it. Then check out the Heartstopper series because it's great. It's really great. Okay, so I would like to share with you something that is fun and bookish a bookish haul, if you will. Not books, but something that is bookish. And I'm a really big fan of candles. So I want to share some candles that I got with you recently, but I'm going to share them a little bit here and a little bit there. So I'm going to intersperse these between the different reviews that I do. So you'll get a little bit at a time. And I'm not affiliated with this company at all, but I heard about this candle company. It's a literary candle company on, I think, Darling Desi's channel. This is Library Lights Candle Company. And I just think they're so fun and clever. They have themed candles for different fandoms. And when they tell you about the candle, a lot of times they have a little blurb that tells you about what the scene is like and what the scents are portraying with these candles, like what the scents portray as far as this fandom goes. And it's a Canadian-based company, so I opted for buying a larger amount and then getting free shipping, because shipping would have been really expensive. And with my conversion rate, it actually ended up working out for me in the long run. I'm always looking for new candle possibilities because I love candles that give off a very nice scent. Like, you can smell a candle and it smells amazing, but once you actually start burning it, it smells like nothing. So that's always a thing for me. Then there's the other side of it where I've got like Bath & Body Works candles that I used to buy quite a bit of, and I love the scents because you can smell them. They permeate the whole household and they work really well for that, but they last for a very short time because they burn through so quickly. I don't know what they're putting in those things, but they burn very, very quickly. So I'm always trying to look for a balance, like a good smelling candle that smells the whole house, but at the same time, a candle that lasts a long time. So I think I'm gonna like this brand. I've only started burning one. It'll be the first one that I tell you about, and then you'll have to come back after some of the other reviews and check out what the other ones are. But I'll show you footage of the candle that I've started on. This is a Mr. Darcy candle, and I have gotten a Mr. Darcy candle from Shell as a gift one time before, which was a different company, and that one smelled lovely too, but I burned that one a while ago. The smells are lemon tea, fresh rain, and bourbon, and I thought this was a perfect combination. It's sweet and romantic smelling, but it also has a little bit of masculinity to it, and I think that comes from the bourbon and the rain smell, and so it is just a light, fresh scent. It does smell the whole house. It takes a little time to do it, but it does, and it's a really nice, pleasant smell. And I think this, of all the candles I got, is probably the one that has the like, not the strongest smell, but I think it's pleasant, and it really makes me want to watch the BBC version of Pride and Prejudice, which I can't be doing right now. But I feel like it's appropriate for Mr. Darcy, and I'm a big fan of Mr. Darcy, so I had to try out his candle. So the fourth book I finished in October, which was the second book this week, is Code Talker by Joseph Bruchac. And this is a fictionalized story about Navajo code talkers during World War II. And this is a story that actually was not widely shared. For a long time it was top secret, and they were not allowed to share any information. But it's also a part of history that we don't hear often enough because it doesn't necessarily feature people within society that are part of the dominant culture. And so I love stories like this from perspectives that are, I mean, Joseph Bruchac is not Navajo, he's Abenaki, but he did so much research. He spoke to so many actual Navajo code talkers. He's done so many panels and things on this same subject matter, but also he had the background of Indigenous experience and knowing how society tends to place stereotypes on this group of people. I thought that he did a really good job of portraying this story. The main character, Ned, is a code talker, and it's set up like he's telling stories to his grandchildren way in the future. So I think it also really reflected how storytelling is done within a lot of these Indigenous cultures. And so I appreciated that, and I just thought it was a very appropriate perspective. And I think the reason I bring it up is because I have read other books by Joseph Bruchac, and I feel like this tone was completely different than some of the other books that he's written. So I think that that shows how he understood what the intention of this book was meant to be. Sorry, I had to change positions because I think my neighbor decided it was a good time to do some work. What I also really liked about this was the honesty of it and how much detail there was about World War II. Now, that might be too much for some people, but I also felt like it was giving a perspective of history that was very realistic and would help you to understand why people came back from World War II with a lot of trauma, and some of this main character's own experiences within the war and how that affects how they interact with other people, how it reflects their culture, and how it shows the very complex way that they present themselves as patriotic Americans. They do believe in their country. They do believe in the work that they're doing, whose culture's not recognized and understood by the country that he's trying to defend. It starts out with Ned going to an actual Indian boarding school and being told how wrong his culture is, how wrong his language is, and being forced not to use it. There was something coming. It was just a leaf, but I just saw something falling at me. And hold on, let me get my dog. But then how all of that is completely contradicted, how the pain that they went through was completely contradicted by the fact that they were needed and used for their language during World War II to become code talkers, which they were very proud of, and they created this code that was amazing, but it was so hypocritical because they were told how much their language gives them a disadvantage to use it. It was a very unique perspective, and I felt like it was very honest, and I really appreciated this perspective because I feel like, especially with students in schools, you don't necessarily get the history that is this nuanced and shows that you can still love your country but also see the flaws in it. And I thought this book did an amazing job of that, and I felt like I can see that this would be good for older middle grade students, but I think that if you could break it down for younger students, maybe not too much younger because it is very dense, I can see how this conversation is very important for children. And another thing I really loved is that it was a beautiful celebration of culture, like it really was. And you get many moments in this where this character is sharing their cultural experiences, their cultural values, and the actual traditions that they are performing within their life in World War II. So it really was amazing. I think for what it's worth, I give it 5 stars. I think for maybe the density of it and that some moments learning about the war and all the details that went into that, just for my own personal enjoyment level, I don't necessarily love battle scenes just because sometimes they can get a little tedious. I felt like there were some moments where I just wasn't enjoying it as much as I was enjoying other moments of it. So that would be why I'd give it 4.5 stars, but that's more from a personal enjoyment level, not necessarily from a what this book is worth level. I think this book is worth a 5-star. I think it's really valuable for what it brings to a middle grade audience. Did I get the adult Happy Meal? Yes. Yes, I did. Okay, let's see. There's my little French fries. Wow. Haphazardly thrown on there. I got a Big Mac. And I got a toy. Which one did I get? Can I tell by feeling it? I don't know. Let's see. Let's open it. Okay. It's hard to do with one hand. I don't even know who this is. Do you guys know who this is? He's cute though. Who is this? I wish I got the Hamburglar. I don't think they have the Hamburglar as an option, but that would have been really cool. Okay, so apparently his name is Cactus Buddy, and they do have the Hamburglar. Oh, I wanted that. And Grimace. And Birdie, those ones are so cute. I wish they had Ronald McDonald, but yeah, I don't know who Cactus Buddy is. Is he new? Is this something I've missed? So the next candle I got is for one of my favorite fandoms, and that is Gilmore Girls. So this is Stars Hollow candle, and this is pumpkin pie, homemade caramel, and apple cider. And what I love about this one is that the homemade caramel smell gives it kind of a smokiness that makes this feel like something you'd find at a fall festival. As everybody probably knows who loves Gilmore Girls, it gives the best fall vibes. And so I think that this is the smell that I would smell if I went to Stars Hollow and joined one of their amazing festivals that they always have. I kind of wish I lived in a small town just for those fun festivals, although I'm sure they wouldn't be like they are in Stars Hollow, but it's a vibe and I'm loving it. Okay, so I'm gonna try and get caught up on all the books that I finished in August and September that I didn't talk about in other videos, because if I talked about them in a vlog, I'm not going to review them on my Sunday sum ups. I feel like it's been a while and I'm not sure how much my brain has retained because I've been using it a lot lately. So I'm going to do my best. I'm going to at least give you my rating and a brief synopsis of whatever the book is so you know what it's about in case you're curious about trying it. We'll see if I can get across some of my thoughts and opinions and stuff like that. I'm a little worried. But maybe it'll come back to me as I start talking about the books. So let's give it a go. The first book I want to talk about is Light Between Oceans by M.L. Stedman. This is a World War I historical fiction. I was curious about this one because I don't think I've read too many books set in World War One. And also, I think it was just one of those ones that I've heard things about. I think there's a movie adaptation about it that's supposed to be pretty good. And it's just been on my list for a while. And I knew that Danielle wanted to read it. Amy said she would like to read it as well. So we're like, oh, let's buddy read it. So for this one, I gave it 4.25 stars. I was enjoying it well enough from the beginning, but the writing style was very different for me and it was very abrupt in a lot of ways. And the story felt like it was dragging a bit at the beginning. Not horribly so, but enough that I was like, well, it's okay, but I'm not sure I'm going to be crazy about this. But this is one of those instances where the story really turns around quite a bit and you end up, I guess, feeling a lot more towards the end. More than I thought I was going to feel. So I did enjoy it a lot. And I'm going to say 4.25 stars, which is a really high rating for me. It's a really good book. Okay, so at the moment, I'm not going to remember any of the characters' names. And I'm not going to look it up because my internet's really bad out here. So in this story, our main character has gone through World War I and is dealing with all the demons from that. But he doesn't really have anybody when he comes back. I mean, he does have family, but he's not close to those family members. So he ends up deciding to become a lighthouse keeper. This is a very heavily regulated position, and it's a very difficult position because of the isolation on these lighthouses and how long people have to stay out on the lighthouses. And so our character, he ends up meeting a wonderful woman while he's in town one day, and he marries her, and they come back to the lighthouse, and unfortunately she's unable to have a baby. They have had quite a few miscarriages and they're struggling, and it's really having a hard time on their morale. At one point, there is a boat that washes up onto shore, and it has a man's dead body in it and a baby who's alive and crying. And they decide to keep the baby for themselves and bury the man's body and say that nothing ever happened, and they actually gave birth to this child. And so then, of course, the story goes from there, and what ends up happening as a result of this choice that they made. And it was a very difficult subject matter to deal with when it came to morality, because in actuality, these were all good people. Everybody who was involved in this was a good person with intentions that were ultimately in the right place, but done in a very wrong way. And you see these people who typically would never have been on the wrong side of the law or doing bad things get placed in a predicament where they're considered bad guys or horrible people. And it's very hard to reconcile, because you can understand the perspective of all these people, of all the people involved. And it is a very difficult situation. And this definitely makes you cry, and it makes you really sad for all these characters involved. I know that I was a little more gray when it came to how I felt about some of the characters. I know that some people feel very strongly about some of the levels of morality, but I thought that's what made it really interesting to have a conversation about this book in particular, because it really does test your thinking of what is moral and what is not. And it is a situation that feels very no-win and very, very difficult, and you're just not quite sure how you want it to resolve itself. And I felt like it really did get better and better, and there was a point when it was just so good, and that's why I'm going to give it 4.25 stars, and I really do think it earned that. Okay, I want to do a quick little run through of my October spreads, even though I only have 2. So I basically have this calendar page, which I haven't updated this week yet, but it has information on what major things I'm doing this month. For example, video uploads, which this is obviously not going in my favorite this month because these 2 haven't happened. Probably not going to happen, but at least I'm trying my Sunday sum ups, I'm doing one thing. And then people's birthdays, like my friend Jezzy and Kayla from Kayla Ray Reads. Then we've got plasma and the days that I'm planning on doing that. Big assignments, so like these big assignments, exams, stuff like that. I think this will be something that I do every month because I do like having a calendar like this where I can keep some key dates and just kind of refer back to it whenever I need to. And then of course I went for a theme of spiders because it is Halloween, and I just kind of like the idea of the spider webs, and I liked these bone letters, which I thought were kind of cute. So then I did a little spiderweb border, and the color scheme I went with, and I'm kind of limited on the colors I have at the moment because I don't have a ton, but I'm going with this orange, this kind of green color, and this purple. So those are my color scheme, and I did carry that through into, as you've already seen, my Halloween bingo board, which has the same bone letters, but I did black instead, and it's got that green, orange, and purple. So as you see, I haven't got much further in this either. Oh, although since I read Jack, I bet I could count that for something. I think what I'm actually going to count it for is black or orange cover, because as you can see, Jack has a black and orange cover, and that'll work perfectly for this, because I had Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell set up for this one, but I don't think I'll be able to get that done in time. So let's cross that one out. I've got my 2 books that I've finished so far this month that work for my Halloween bingo board. And so then as far as the rest of October, I never did any more spreads. I have not had a lot of time this month, and I still haven't quite figured out exactly what I want to do for each monthly spread that I do, because I don't just want it to incorporate my book stuff. I also want it to incorporate some other things. So it's going to take me a little time to figure that out, because I'm still trying to figure out Bujo and how I want to handle this each month. And I need to be starting on my next month's November's, because otherwise I'm not going to get it done. But I just wanted to give you a quick run through, because I know somebody was interested in seeing that. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Sandy, but some people were interested in seeing what my Bujo looks like. And I can't tell you at the moment that I have any great insights, because I am just starting this. So this is my year-long, I call it future log, because I keep track of all the things that are happening within the whole year. And that includes big things that are happening, but also birthdays and anything else that I would like to keep track of that I want to know way in advance. So like my hair appointment, when my next hair appointment is, because I only get them like once every 6 months. So just things that I may not remember that are scheduled far out. And then I have book spreads for the whole year. So I've got Buzzwordathon, and with this one, I had decided to print out little pictures of the books that I chose for each prompt. I thought that was kind of a fun thing, and I put this little cute little bee up here at the top for my little Buzzwordathon. And then this looks kind of blurry. Let's see, did that help? Is it less blurry now? I don't think so, but... And then Melanie does the TBR knockout, so I created this TBR knockout thing, and each section it has 2 prompts for each month. I got my months set up here, and then the prompts for each month. And then I made this little teeny cute design at the bottom, which I thought was adorable. So that was my theme for this spread. And then for this one, I've got my 100 Essentials books, which I've already told you about in the last Sunday Sum Up. And then the book covered book club. I didn't like the way the bees turned out, but I was having some issues. But January, the theme is stars. February, it's hearts. March, it's textures. I made this little texture. So I did different things to show the themes for each month. This particular reading challenge is all about the art of the book covers. So I thought it would actually be fun to draw and color the book covers on here. So eventually I will do that when I have a little extra free time. And that's it. I have ideas for other things I want to add, but I just haven't had the time to do it. So hopefully at some point I will be able to. And that's my Bujo so far. But yeah, it's a work in progress. I had said I was going to take time to start doing Bujoing, because I wanted to give myself time to just explore and not feel pressure. But I think I'm starting to see things that I like and ways that I want to do things each month. And we'll see if it continues on that way. Next, I'm going to very briefly talk about Fruits Basket Volume 5 Collector's Edition. This is a bind-up of quite a few of the volumes. I gave this a 3.75. I would say that of the series, this is not my favorite for sure. And I think that's because it kind of felt disjointed. And also, I think I'm getting a little confused by, and this is not the book's fault, this is the adaptations and how it was decided to be done. There's one storyline that happens in this book that happened way earlier in the actual anime, and it was very confusing when it happened in the anime, because it was like, wait a minute, this never happened in the books. And it finally happened here in Volume 5, and it really made it feel like it was just a refresher repeat. And I felt like actually this particular storyline was portrayed better in the anime. Confused me a little bit, and unfortunately made this feel like this story was duplicated within the manga, which I don't think it was, but it made it feel like it. And I actually went back and looked at reviews to be like, did they tell this story twice in the manga series? And I don't think so. I think it's because I watched the anime. But then the actual main storyline of this, I felt like was much more disjointed in this one. And it felt like an in-between story. Like, let's get us to the next book where a lot of things are going to happen. Because I was expecting a lot more to happen in this one than actually did. And it wasn't that it was bad, just that it wasn't my favorite. And I'm looking forward to the next one to see what kind of things are going to go down. Because it just felt like they were preparing me for the next book. And I think that that's really hard when you're looking at series that have a lot of volumes and they're going to take a long time to go over, because you do need some of those in-between stories that keep the story moving along and move you from one subject to the next. But it can be really not as exciting to read those. And I felt like this book was full of it. Not bad, 3.75. I still am enjoying this series a lot. And I'm looking forward to continuing on with both the manga series and the anime. Okay, so let's talk about this particular candle I got, which is meant to go with one of the books I recently purchased. I recently purchased Babel by R.F. Kuang, and that's a dark academia in a sense. I think it's a dark academia. And I got the dark academia candle. Now, I'm not necessarily known for being someone who loves dark academia, only because I don't think I've read very much dark academia. But I was like, well, if I'm into reading that book, I should have a candle that goes with it. And this one is perfect because it's smoked vanilla, espresso, hello, studying, long hours, and spiced pumpkin. So it's got the fall vibes with the pumpkin smell, but the smoked vanilla element to it makes it smell like candles like in a library. And then if you got the espresso, of course, which even makes it feel more academic because, you know, you've got that like studying until all hours things. It does have like a mysterious dark smell with the smoked vanilla and the espresso, and I think that makes it a perfect dark academia sort of candle. So I can't wait to read Babel, hopefully sooner rather than later, and then I will burn this candle while I'm reading it because it'll give me even more of the vibes that I'm looking for with that book. A book that I'm not sure I actually talked about in a video, and I'm not going to talk about it here really because it's the fourth in a series and it's hard to talk about this book without getting spoilers, but I don't really know if I talked about it anywhere, and I might have, but I'm just going to tell you really quickly that City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare is another book that we're reading for Bookstar read-alongs, and there is a live show discussion, and I will link it up here, so if you want to go see our spoilery thoughts, if you've read this series, or if you would like to know what I thought about this particular book, I'll put that up here, and I gave this one 4.25 stars. It is definitely that tropey late 90s, early 2000s YA fantasy. I'm just having fun reading it. Like, I went into it with very low expectations, and therefore I'm having a blast. Like, it's got high adventure. She paces very well, Cassandra Clare does, and so it's easy to get through these really quickly, and I just kind of have fun reading them. So I'm giving that one a pretty high rating because I'm kind of enjoying this next part of the story, because after book 3 in the Mortal Instrument series, you could pretty much finish there, but I think Cassandra Clare was like, oh, I want to continue on. I think she wasn't done with these characters, and so she's kind of starting a whole new storyline. I think there's something to be said for books that you just enjoy because they give you a certain feeling that you need at the time that you need it. Speaking of certain books that give you a certain feeling at the certain time that you need it, I ended up reading a really very short novella last night called Jack by Layla Fae. This is a monster erotica. I don't think I've ever read even a romance or something like that, a smutty romance. I've never read anything that is this short before, except like a kid's book or something along those lines. So it was pretty fun to see how the author was able to get through this story very quickly and wrap things up so, I guess, succinctly in a sense, because it happened very fast. But it was so much fun. It came about because we were doing reading sprints last night for Bookstar read-alongs, and Jean, who actively participates in Bookstar read-alongs, was saying how she was watching the Instagram commentary or something like that the author was doing, I think, on Jack, and there were some comments that came up that allude to the story, and we were all like, what? Super intrigued. And Danielle picked it up during the sprints, and I was doing homework, and I was like, but I want to read this because I need to be in the mood for Halloween, and I needed something like a palate cleanser to get me through. I've been having a hard time reading lately, not because I don't want to read, just because I've started so many books and I have so much other stuff, meaning homework, that I've been up to. So it was kind of nice just to pick something up, or I wanted to pick something up that was like holiday spirit and fun, quick, and yeah, it was. And so I got my homework done, I picked it up, and this was hilarious. And it's basically about this woman who is lonely and missing sex, and she summons a jack-o'-lantern monster. He's a guy's body. Well, not completely. And he has this big jack-o'-lantern head, and it's smut. It's pure smut. And if you're looking for something that is really silly, like honestly, it's super silly. It's really funny in parts. I know people were pretty grossed out by certain things, but I thought it was hilarious. And it was just a fun way to get in the holiday spirit if you're into smut. If you're not into smut, don't read this. I'm going to give it 3.75 stars because, it wasn't the best writing ever, and it wasn't my favorite smut or my favorite monster smut that I have ever read. But it still was a blast, and it was hilarious to be chatting about it on our reading sprints and then have the opportunity to read it. And it was nice to read something that I was able to finish so quickly. Like, it felt good to accomplish that. And it definitely has all the Halloween vibes. A taste of Halloween. If you know what I mean. I would recommend Jack. It's so short that, even if you don't like it, who cares? It's really quick. But it was a lot of fun, and I'm glad that Jean brought that up because it gave us a lot of good giggles during our reading sprints, and I think both Danielle and I had a really fun time reading it. Okay, so I then got one that is actually Twilight inspired, but I'm not necessarily part of the Twilight fandom. I enjoyed the books way back when I read them, and they were fun, but I've never really been a huge Twilight stan. But this one is the Forks Washington candle, and I feel like this is so appropriate because I live in Washington, and I wanted something that kind of evoked the feeling you get when it starts raining here. We're also getting to the point in my area where we're starting to get a lot of fog, and that's pretty common in the fall. I thought this was really appropriate, and it has dark forest smells, apple smells, and roasted vanilla. And Washington's known for its apples. And then, of course, we've got all our evergreen trees surrounding us. And so when I was smelling this, it smells really nice. And the apple smell kind of cuts a little bit of that astringent smell you get with pine. So it doesn't smell like a cleaner. It does smell more like a candle. And I'm not sure that Washington actually smells like this. But it smells so good that I'm going to pretend when I'm burning this on rainy days here. Because that is the vibe that I'm getting from this. The roasted vanilla kind of gives you that smoky that you'd think of when you think of fog. So I love it, and this one smells delicious, and I can't wait to try it out. I finished 4 Magic Treehouse books in the month of September, and that was books 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I really don't know if anybody's that interested in hearing about these, and there's not much to say because the series is so formulaic. But I will tell you really quickly that based on the live show discussion, which was a lot of fun. And if you have read Magic Treehouse or you're interested in hearing people's thoughts about the Magic Treehouse series, I would recommend checking out the live shows by Martine from Just Martine and Kayla from Kayla by Reads. I will link those live shows down in the description box below. What was interesting about this particular grouping of books is that everybody's least favorite, which was Sabertooth at Sunset, I think it's called, was my favorite. Everybody's most favorite, which was Moon at Midnight. I didn't like that one. That was my least favorite. So yeah, I guess it goes to show you what my interests are. I don't know. It was funny, but it was a good discussion, and this is a fun little series. I'm just enjoying getting through. They're nice, quick, easy reads. I don't know that there's much else to say about that. And I should also point out that of the other 2 books, there's Dolphins at Dawn or Dolphins at Daybreak. I gave that one 4 stars. I liked that one almost as much as the Sabertooth one. And then the Ghost Town at Sundown, I gave that 3.75 stars because I did enjoy it, but there were elements to it that I wasn't crazy about. Finally, I think I'm nearing the end of my August and September books. Any books that I didn't talk about in vlogs. The last one was an audiobook I listened to called Taste by Stanley Tucci. And this is fairly recent. Stanley Tucci's an actor that I've really enjoyed. I went to culinary school at one point, so I definitely love food, and I like hearing about people's journey with food. And of course, I like hearing actors' stories as well, so I thought this was a perfect combination. This was a book that I gave 4 stars, a solid 4 stars. I really did enjoy it. However, listening to the audiobook, good 75% of this book is talking about specific recipes and offering them within the book. I love that he's doing that because there are recipes I want from this book that I want to try. And he does give a lot of his background with that particular food item or drink item and why it's so important to him and why it's shaped his life in some way. But it did make it a little tedious in listening to the audiobook because, for one, I couldn't reference back to the recipe, and 2, it really was him just giving ingredients and saying how to make it. And then there were a few times when he's doing dialogue where he's like, Mom said this, I said this, Mom said, and he doesn't just like go along with the dialogue, like, Mom said this, blah, 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 blah. And then like his response back and forth, it was like, Mom said this, I said this, Mom said this, I said this. So he's reading it exactly how he probably wrote it. And that was really annoying at times. So that particular part of the audiobook I could have done without. And because this was mostly recipe book, to be honest, and there was definitely parts of his life and you get to hear his experience, but it really was centered around food, I would like a physical copy of this. And I do plan on getting a physical copy of this book because I think the recipes sound amazing. And it was so fun to hear his experience. And one of the things I actually really enjoyed, though, was Stanley Tucci's humor. It was very tongue-in-cheek and a little dry at times, but I thought that added a really fun element to this. And I really liked all his name drops, which, you know, he like made a point of being like, oh, I'm gonna name drop now. And I just thought it was really cute. I mean, it could be considered obnoxious by some people, but I thought it was actually his humor and I thought it was pretty funny. And of course, that's some of the things I really enjoy about Stanley Tucci. I enjoy the way he relates humor in his characters, and I thought that came across fairly well in this book. Then the last scent I got because I thought it was pretty funny and fun. And that's because I've been reading a lot of Cassandra Clare lately. A lot of Cassandra Clare, and having to do with the Shadowhunter world. If you know, then you know about Parabatais. And Parabatais are basically two Shadowhunters that have created a bond. They're like fighting partners in a sense. And I love the idea of the scent combinations here. So we have white cedar, which I think cedar smells amazing. And then we've got vanilla musk. I was a little nervous about the musk part, but I wanted to try it. And finally salted lemon. So I was like, oh, that sounds like it will smell really good. And it smells amazing. Like, it really smells amazing. I'm not sure that this one smells very fall-ish. Like, I think this is my least fall-ish candle of all the ones that I got, but it smells so good. And I think because this one seems like it might be the strongest of the scents, it will work really well to permeate the house with this beautiful smell. And so I can't wait to burn this one while I'm reading all my Cassandra Clare books, because I have a lot to catch up on. And so yeah, I just thought this one was a lot of fun, and I thought it was funny. And there are so many different options. I think they're so cool. One thing I wanted to say about this company, and like I said, not affiliated at all, I'm just having fun trying them out, is that they did a really good job of packaging. Each one came in bubble wrap, completely individually wrapped, and then the box itself has tons of this stuff in it, the foozles. And it was also really cute because they gave you this bookmark, which is a Library Lights candle company, like one of those library book card thingies, but it also has the instructions for how to best care for your candle. And then also from book pages, these little punch confettis in here. So there was like confetti, there were I call them foozles, they're probably something else or whatever, and a bookmark that has all the instructions for it. And I just thought this was so cleverly curated and very well done, and I think I'm gonna like these candles a lot. So I just wanted to share that with you because it's something fun that I found out, and I was able to get the shipping for free, and it was express shipping. So like, it took a little while because shipping from Canada does take some time, especially because this was on the East Coast where I'm on the West Coast. I was a little worried shipping candles. I've had candles come to me before that were completely busted up, and they did an amazing job with all of it. So I'm impressed, and I wanted to recommend it. If you are interested or looking for candles, if you're a candle person, then this is fun. At least go check out the website. I will link it down below because I love looking at all the different options they have for their bookish themed candles. I just realized there was one more book that I didn't talk about that was from September, and that was Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. And this is the 6th book in the series. We're almost at the end. We have the last battle left, which we're supposed to be reading soon. We have a live show next weekend for it. I better get to that. This one is the only book of the Narnia series that I had actually read before, and I think the last time I read it, I gave it 3 or 3.5 stars. And I enjoyed it way more on a reread. And I would say at this point that it's one of my more favorite books in this series. So that was kind of cool that upon reread and having read all the other books, I ended up enjoying it a lot more. I guess I could appreciate it more, knowing a lot of the characters now, knowing the way the story went. I'm not going to tell you too much about this one because it's part of a big series. I did do a live show discussion of this with Christine from An Autistic Reader, so I'll link that discussion up here. And I think the reason I liked this one is because I really liked the two main characters. And that was one issue that I had with some of the other books where I was either not that crazy about the main characters or I didn't vibe with the plot of those stories quite as much. But this one kept my attention and I ended up really enjoying where it went, which is surprising because, you know, sometimes you read something and you're thinking, okay, not really for me, but then you reread it and given different context or given maybe a different mindset, it can change your rating, which I think is always an interesting experience. So I would give this one 4 stars now, maybe 4.25, but I don't remember what I gave it because on my Goodreads, I'm actually not putting my ratings in there. I should have been doing that, like in my little updates. But I'm reading the whole bind up. And so I just keep increasing my progress, but I haven't necessarily put my actual ratings in, which is dumb now. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch videos of the discussions I've had of these books because I don't remember what I rated them anymore. I know that some people prefer reading books in chronological order, but in this instance, I really enjoyed reading it publication order, and I thought it helped me enjoy this book even more. Okay, so let's really quickly talk about what I'm actively reading at the moment. There are many books that I have started and want to continue, but what am I gonna realistically be able to work on this next week? Well, first, I definitely need to read Times Convert by Deborah Harkness, and I'm currently on page 160 with this one, so I'm making progress, just not very quick progress. I need to get this done by Friday because we did extend the date when we're doing our live show discussion of this because all of us needed extra time, which was perfect because I definitely need extra time. I'm enjoying what I'm reading so far. I do love Deborah Harkness's writing. I think that she just gets me. I had some moments in here where it was a little slower paced and I was like, yeah, but we're back into a spot where I'm just really enjoying it. So I'm having a lot of fun reading this, getting back to some of these characters. Also, one of my Game of Bookish Life books, The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury, I picked up because I wanted something Halloween, something within the spirit of the season, and I am currently 43% of the way through this. I started reading it through the physical book, but then I ended up picking the audiobook up. And to be honest, it's really strange because I know Ray Bradbury is very popular, very well loved for his writing style, and this book is just not working for me. I feel like I get the appeal. There's very clever elements to this, and I think that he is super creative, but I think that his writing style just doesn't like mesh with my taste very well. And I don't know if this is a Ray Bradbury thing or if this is this book specific, because I think I read Fahrenheit 451 some point in my life when I was younger, but I don't remember it well enough to say that I definitely read it. And I haven't read anything else by Bradbury. So is it because of The Halloween Tree? Or is it because this author just writes in a way that, for some reason, just doesn't work with my brain? And I thought maybe if I listen to it, I'll feel differently about it. But I'm doing the same thing with the audiobook that I was doing with the physical book. So which tells me that I just don't think that this particular book is for me. And that's a bummer because I really wanted to get in the spirit. But then I just read Jack. And that got me in the spirit. But I will finish that one, so hopefully I'll have a review for you of that one next week. And then I'm still chugging along on Fairy Tale by Stephen King. This is an audiobook that I'm listening to. I'm at 38%. It's a very long audiobook, but I'm enjoying it. The funny thing is that there's a long part of this book before any of the fairy tale fantasy stuff happens where you're just dealing with the main character and his relationship with his dad, but then his relationship with this man named Mr. Bowditch. And I think for most people that would be considered the most tedious section of this book because nothing really happens. And none of the fantasy stuff has happened in that first 30%, I would say. And yet, I really liked that stuff. And now that we're getting into the fantasy, I'm like, nah, my interest it's not gone. I'm still interested in listening to it, but not nearly as much as I was interested in the first part of it. So I don't know if that says something about me and what I like in books. That relationship building between these characters where not much was happening at all was something I was really enjoying in this story. And now we're moving into the fantasy though. And so I'm excited to see what happens. You know, Stephen King is very creative, so some of his ideas are fun. What I do think is funny about this is he really does go heavily into the fairy tale aspect of it, and he pulls from many other fairy tales because this world is sort of a combination of all these different fairy tale ideas. Stephen King's writing style is very simplistic. It's easy to get into, but I know that sometimes people think his writing is very tedious because he goes on and on about details that may not be interesting to everybody. And sometimes I like that about his writing, because even when things aren't happening, there's just a vibe that I'm enjoying. And I like his character building because I think he does a very good job building characters. And I think that's what I like most about Stephen King. So I'm having fun. I'm having fun listening to that in my car when I go to and from school, but I need to finish the Halloween Tree first. So I'll get that done and then I'll get back to fairy tale. Another book that I'm working on that I completely forgot to mention is Anna Karenina. So I finished part 1 to talk to Kim about last week, and it was a great discussion. We had a lot of fun chatting about it. We're both having so much fun reading this. And so I'm like 140 pages into this. And this week we're supposed to have gotten through part 2, and neither of us have. So I think we're both going to be trying to catch up on this over probably the next week, and we'll continue talking about it. And we're at least just having a good time talking about this book together. And luckily we're both not the quickest readers, so we understand. So yeah, I'll be working on this one as well. So that's it for this week, and I'm so glad that I was able to get more into this video than I did last week. I feel very accomplished today. Let me know in the comment section down below if you picked up any books this week that were atmospheric or gave you fall vibes, or if they didn't, let me know if you picked up a book that you were hoping that you would enjoy a lot more and you didn't love it as much as you thought you would. And that's the Halloween Tree for me at this moment. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. It lets everybody know what's happening over on my channel, and if they would like to check out this content, it'll make them aware of it. And subscribe if you'd like to see what happens in this next week. See if I can get more reading done. I really hope that I can. And I just need to make sure I get this book done. That's that has to happen. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later.